Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Women of Gairdner. I would like to begin by acknowledging Toronto as a traditional gathering place for many Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, with a brief video graciously provided by the Centre for Wise Practices Indigenous Health out here at Women's College Hospital.
Ani, bonjour. Sarah Rockandishnakas. Shebananing and Donjaba, Takaranto and Dai. Takaranto, a Mohawk word, the place in the water where the trees are standing, the place where the fish weirs are. My dog and I spend a lot of time walking. It's my favorite way to move through this city. For me, it's a meditative action that isn't about negotiating bike lanes or public transit, but a time to slow down and really try to see the world around me. Concrete sidewalks, parking lots, now covering the rivers and trails that once flowed freely. The Petun, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabeg, the Métis, the Mississaugas all made their homes here, and many other nations expanding beyond these groups traveled through for commerce and trade for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. I think of the other First Peoples' languages and the names they had for this place. I think of the ancient trails covered by the pressures of settlement. The waterways and the moderate climate of the Great Lakes made it a perfect place to fish, hunt, grow food, gather medicines and seeds for horticultural development. Rich, fertile, and abundant, Turtle Island's Mesopotamia. Many First Peoples and their goods traveled from here all the way to the Mississippi and back. Whenever I travel somewhere new, I try to find out whose land I'm on, and I ask, who are the original occupants here? So for Indigenous peoples, land acknowledgements are not only to assert our sovereignty and treaty rights of today, but it's also a way for all peoples to feel more connected to a place. Davenport might be a street now, one I walk down regularly in my neighborhood, but it's not just another thoroughfare. For me, it's an ancient portage trail that holds Indigenous knowledge. They say the animals made the first trails that led them to water, and the people followed. I imagine the deer and the moose once made this trail, followed by the people carrying their birch bark canoes, carrying their goods to trade, and bringing stories to tell. Nations from all over Turtle Island met and traveled through this land. Many languages were spoken. Alliances and decisions were made. People from different nations met and intermarried. The dish with one spoon treaty was made. Takaranto was a meeting place and land made up of sophisticated and cosmopolitan peoples and cultures that I see reflected in the city today. I wonder, is it something in the land and the water? Land acknowledgements might seem like a small and simple gesture, but like many of our ways, they are intended to have more impact and hold more meaning than the words alone. If we pride ourselves on diversity and equality, shouldn't our story include Indigenous peoples? In this era of reconciliation, we need to share the truth first. And reimagine the narrative of this land and this city together.
It's a beautiful video, isn't it? Thanks to our Centre for Wise Practices here. And the Centre also collaborated with us today on the event. So my name's Heather McPherson, and I'm the President and CEO here at Women's College Hospital, and so lovely to see everybody here in the auditorium today. I'd particularly like to acknowledge our Gairdner laureates, Dr. Katalin, Karikó, and Dr. Deborah Cook, the Gairdner Foundation, and the student attendees. Wonderful to see you here, and great energy in the room that students bring. Scientific research is a critical component of our healthcare system. Without it, we would struggle to enhance patient care or address public health crises like the global pandemic. Without research, we'd lack the necessary insight to improve our health system and how it operates. Having said that, we are now facing new and unparalleled challenges in healthcare, ones that require scientific investigation and innovation. To address these challenges, we cannot rely on the status quo or the same old approaches. We need new perspectives and new approaches. We need to elevate the voices of those who have historically been excluded from both science and the healthcare system, particularly those from Indigenous and Black communities. We need to expand the circle of who conducts health research in Canada. For example, when we're looking at the Canada Research Chairs in 2021, roughly 41% of the named chairs identified as women, 23% as people of color, almost 6% as persons living with a disability, and only 3% as Indigenous. Numbers like these need to change. Today's event is a step in that direction. As an organization founded on the belief that equity enables both healthcare excellence and revolutionary advances, Women's College Hospital is committed to mentoring the next generation of health scientists and clinicians, from high schools, students to postgraduates, who will help us shape the future of healthcare. We believe that mentorship needs to begin at a young age and should continue through someone's educational and career path. Going forward, we plan to incorporate more information about Indigenous science and knowledge at Women of Gairdner event and continue to feature scientists with an array of experiences and perspectives. To our students and attendants, we're so glad you're here. And after today's event, we hope you walk away with new insights and motivation to pursue studies in STEM, healthcare, and science more generally. We need more young people like you. Now I would like to welcome Dr. Rulén Parekh, our VP of Academics, to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather, for the welcome, and thank you to everyone for joining us today. I'm really so excited to see all the students, members from the Gairdner Foundation, and the Gairdner laureates. I feel like a young girl because I'm so excited to meet women in science who've been incredible, and so I hope that they not only inspire you today, but they're also inspiring to me today. So my name is Rulén Parekh. I'm the Vice President of Academics at Women's College Hospital. And I planned this event with all my colleagues here at Women's to really shine a spotlight on women in science and how their science has impacted health globally. And for you, the students, my hope was that we'd ignite your passion in science and so that you can meet these outstanding women and network with other scientists and realize your potential in potentially pursuing a career in science. I believe that if we increase diversity in science, that we can continue to address new areas, address inequities, and solve problems creatively. And having an interest or a passion in science can pave the way to a fulfilling and impactful career. And my hope for today's talks and the panel and our activities afterwards is that it'll inspire you to pursue your passions relentlessly. My hope is that you're curious, you learn how to persist, and listen to your inner voice that tells you to go for something. I actually came through science in a sort of an odd way, in that I thought I would do medicine, and I really liked solving problems and dilemmas and diagnostic dilemmas for the patient right in front of you. But I did a research project in my last year of clinical training where I got to use data. And I used a large data set that impacted actually hundreds of thousands of people in the United States. And I realized that I could actually use that data to inform practice. So not just to take care of the patient right in front of me, but I could impact patient care actually globally. And that to me was incredibly meaningful. And it really sparked my interest in this lifelong career in thinking about how could I use data, both biologic and clinical, to continue to inform practice. And actually, I then embarked on my science career. So when I was at your stage, I didn't think I was a scientist. But I think what happens is that if you're curious and you keep thinking about things and you want to fix things, I think that science is the perfect career for you. Like Heather mentioned, when solving complex problems like those in science and healthcare, innovation and creativity result from having diverse perspectives. And the ability to see a problem differently enhances innovation and is integral to achieving it. And to address this inequity and diversity in health sciences, as Heather's already mentioned, we really wanted to make sure that we could increase diversity in the science, and we really wanted to encourage students and undergraduate students and high school students to be able to pursue careers in science. And so we started the Emily Stowe Scholars Program, and this is made possible through the Emily Stowe Society, a community of dedicated donors who are helping us break down barriers in careers in health sciences. The program funds students who are interested in coming from high school and undergrad and postgrad, And we are really addressing diverse persons who've been systemically and historically excluded in healthcare and health science career trajectories, and give students a firsthand look at health research, as well as making sure that they're mentored well and that we give them lots of networking opportunities. So thank you to all the students who've come from our Emily Stowe program, and thank you to the donors and our committee who's really made this successful. I'm now going to introduce our speakers today and really welcome the two scientists and leaders in their field. The recipients of the 2022 Gairdner Awards is a prestigious award recognizing the world's most creative and accomplished biomedical scientists. Now, Dr. Cook today wasn't sure how she got classified as number one, but I think that no matter how you count, she's clearly a giant among us. These scientists have advanced humanity in the world, and I think it's really exciting to hear from them today, and we look forward to asking them questions later on about their careers, and we'll also give you an opportunity to ask questions. So first up is Dr. Deborah Cook, who's a pioneer in critical care medicine in Canada, informing best practices around the world. She's led major improvements in the care of our hospital's sickest patients, including advanced life support, prevention of ICU-acquired complications, research ethics, and end-of-life care. Notably, she developed the internationally adopted 3 Wishes Project. This unique end-of-life care model encourages clinicians from different backgrounds to improve the dying experience for hospitalized patients, as well as easing family grief and fostering humanism in practice. Her research has really helped alleviate the enormous human and economic costs of critical illness for patients, their family, the healthcare system, and society. She's passionate about what she's done. She's helped reduce morbidity and mortality, and has saved lives in the ICU by impacting critical care globally. She has championed compassionate end-of-life care models that impact patient families and care providers. And I can't wait to hear more about her program and how she's really persisted in this very difficult area throughout her career. Welcome, Dr. Deborah Cook.
Thank you so much. It's a huge day. It's been a huge week, and it's amazing to have a venue like this to share with other people interested in science, particularly women. I wasn't sure what to speak about today because there's so many things we could all discuss together, and in many ways I'm looking forward more perhaps to the conversation, because science is not about talking and lecturing, but it's about listening and having a dialogue. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about my story, and I'd like to begin by asking for a show of hands. How many people in the audience have heard of an intensive care unit? How many of you have been in an intensive care unit? A few. And I think the pandemic over the last 2.5 years has clearly shown everybody the seriousness of being critically ill, the high mortality, and the teamwork that's so crucial to help save lives in the ICU. That's my backyard, and I've always felt that being a clinician makes me a better researcher, and being a researcher makes me a better clinician. Thinking about tomorrow and the future always is an opportunity to think about where we are now as a launching place. But it's also important to look back and see where we were. The intensive care unit has always looked like this. It's replete with technology. The person in the bed is almost invisible. We often forget the sex, pay no attention to the gender of the person in the bed. There's a whole team of people, however, helping this patient. Diagnosing, monitoring, preventing, treating, sometimes palliating for those persons who are not going to survive. The picture says it all. For women in science, women in STEM, women in medicine, and sometimes I felt like this in my early days. McMaster University is a very special university, and that's where I went to medical school. A lot of my friends questioned that choice. It was unconventional. It was a place where authority was questioned. It was a place where people were encouraged to ponder and challenge the status quo. It was the home of evidence-based practice, evidence-based medicine. Dr. David Sackett, Dr. Gordon Guyatt, Dr. Brian Haynes, and many others were there. And there was an amazing woman, Dr. Roberta Bondar, a neurologist who was a McMaster graduate, who had a meteoric career, pardon the pun, as the first female Canadian astronaut. And she was an inspiration for me, even though I didn't know her very well. Dr. May Cohen, a University of Toronto graduate, was a family physician who was the first to really shine a light on women's health, actually utter the word abortion in rounds. She was called the gender lady. She was a powerful force, a person who would walk down the hall and say, "Hey, why don't you come and see me? What's happening? What's going on? What would you like to do? What are you interested in?" She'd say that to all kinds of people. And just knowing she was out there, like so many other individuals, like Dr. Heather Munro Bloom, in my community, just knowing there are people out there making a difference as scholars and scientists, that's very, very important. After my first week on call, I was reflecting on the final day on rounds. The male residents were post-call or on half-day or somewhere, and all the women were around the bed of the patient. And a surgeon came in and stopped in his tracks and was aghast and said, "Hey, well, look at this. All girls in charge of the ICU." Didn't know how to react. And all I could say was, "Yes, how can we help you?" Many comments like this followed. My first conference overseas, walking up to the podium, was being introduced by the co-chair. And after the usual statements, and he said, "And today she's talking to us about pneumonia. And as you can see, she's a woman." Again, I didn't have the voice to respond. I didn't know what to do. I just paused for a moment, composed myself, and went ahead with the presentation. At another meeting, a conference organizer sitting beside me was extolling the virtues of having scientists bring their partners to a dinner. And he just leaned over and said, "I notice you didn't bring a husband. Are you gay?" And after I got up off the floor, and my fantasy was after he got up off the floor, we just carried on. Words often underscore attitudes. Behaviors are very, very important to recognize, identify, and modify, and all of us are responsible for making the future better than the past. When I look back on these days, I know how important it was to get through every maze, sidestep adversities, know who to befriend, who to turn away from, how to dig down deep and do whatever I could to make a difference in my quest to pursue science and improve the process of care and the outcomes for critically ill patients. Resilience became very important. And this is a practice that I've fostered over the years, and I'm sure all of you have. Our strategies for coping, hopefully mostly adaptive, occasionally maladaptive, but these are very important things to attend to as individuals in the ups and downs of life, and as scientists and scholars in the ups and downs of having a career in research. I thought a lot about culture, because scientists too are social creatures. And organizational culture is an important thing to consider when you're starting your career and when you're in the middle of your career, how things are around here, the invisible forces that actually influence both the tangibles and the intangibles. Organizational culture to a group, a research group, or a society is like personality is to an individual. And I did ask myself, what kind of organizational culture would I like to be part of? Would I like to help create? There are many different attributes of organizational cultures, and in critical care medicine, because there are so many different practitioners who care for critically ill patients, was keen for a developmental or an innovative model, obviously one that was organized and strategic, but was very community-based and fostered this sense of group activity and the shared scientific priorities that would help our critically ill patients. I was very delighted to be part of the Canadian Critical Care Trials Group as a co-founder and a two-term chair in our early days. And we developed these objectives that were themselves quite strategic to try to foster investigator-initiated multidisciplinary critical care research and advance methods, scientific methods. We were very keen to hold as a value the early career investigator, of which I was one in the day, and promote this culture of inquiry that has helped keep us going in Canada. And obviously, this group was one of many that helped to answer important questions throughout the pandemic to help save lives and identify which interventions for patients with COVID would do more harm than good. So these core values were key. And the second one of collegiality and ensuring collaboration and respectful approaches, that was one way I felt as a female scientist I could try to create a community that I wanted to be part of, keeping in mind organizational culture. Where are we now? These are some of the many women who either have been in McMaster or currently are in McMaster, trainees, previous trainees, and they do not represent all of the ones with whom I've had the great privilege of working. In critical care, there have been many individuals who have made a big difference, shining a light on gender issues, gender equity, the gender gap in critical care. About 30% of critical care physicians are female. Geeta Mehta above, Jen Parsons-Lee, Karen Burns, Margaret Herridge, all of these individuals and others have helped to actually study women in critical care. This has been a very, very instructive exercise, and I've been privileged to work with some of them in this way. Early on, there was a set of practice guidelines in our field. We've got quite a number of them, but there was one recently where it was a manel. Everyone in the authorship list was a male, and this was a bit of a shock, and it incited a lot of work, and Geeta and colleagues looked at guidelines through the National Clearinghouse for medicine overall and identified, as you can see, in critical care, 38% female authors, for female physicians, only 25%. For critical care, the numbers were a little bit different, and we thought this was quite important because it acknowledged the expertise, remembering that practicing and participating in practice guidelines is usually invitational. It's not a self-directed activity of a scientist. It's an invite-related. Looking at critical care conferences, there were also important statistics to flesh out from 5 of the key national and international conferences. Even though there are gaps there, this is increasing over time, and more women are being asked to speak. Regarding authorships in general for critical care universally, you can see that Canada is doing quite well. There's a lot of female leadership in critical care in our country. And interestingly, the publication on the left there identified that when female senior scientists author a document, they're more likely, almost twofold more likely, to have other women in the authorship list. And this seems to be increasing over time. So it was an interesting analytic approach. What does the future hold? Well, one of the important equity, diversity, inclusivity sort of concepts in critical care is to, again, lend a hand, shine a light on, and try to improve the situation related to, in this case, visible minority authors on some of the publications of the Canadian Critical Care Trials Group. And you can see that trainees in particular are a group of people we'd like to focus on, because one of our core values has been enhancing the career of early investigators. And I do look forward to the future, because we need to be the change that we want to see and help make our field, whatever your field is, better tomorrow than it is today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cook. We're going to move on now to Dr. Karikó, who's with us today. And you may not know this, but if it wasn't for the work that Dr. Karikó had done, we might not have gotten out of the pandemic. And so it's really exciting to have her here with us today. She, along with her collaborator and immunologist, Dr. Drew Weissman, discovered how to engineer mRNA, a molecule that carries instructions for making proteins. And despite the initial skepticism, the two believed in the potential for vaccines and other applications. And I think the word that I'll use a lot today was that she persisted, which I think is so critical. So following the emergence of COVID-19, various teams around the world began working on potential vaccines, but it was really key that they were able to introduce the modified mRNA molecule into the body, and that's what the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines are made from. And that's really based on the work that Dr. Karikó and her collaborators had worked on for many, many years. Her work has really led to the rapid availability of the safe COVID-19 mRNA vaccines and has been an important tool in the control of the pandemic. The discovery has also potentially, and I think now, is also revolutionizing potential therapeutics and gene therapies. And as we move forward, I think there's going to be a lot more work done on vaccines, such as threats of influenza, HIV, and perhaps even malaria. But it really does show this power of perseverance when confronting obstacles in your studies and your careers. So welcome to Dr. Karikó, and I look forward to hearing more about the science.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Good morning. I was the same situation. I didn't know what should I talk about, and so I thought that graduate students will be here also, but it doesn't matter. If you are a high school student, you can learn. I heard that you are now is in a biology class. You are here, yeah, so that we will have some biology. And so I'm talking about a little bit about developing mRNA for therapy and kind of my story with it. And mRNA was discovered 61 years ago, and so it took like 60 years to develop it to an FDA-approved product in a form of LNP mRNA. And during these things, 60 years, a lot of things happened, and which is very important with the discovery, we learned the information flow from the DNA to the RNA to the protein. And scientists also discovered that the structure of the RNA and there is a cap, the poly-A tail, and coding sequence, and this mRNA structure, which is shown there, was known about by 1975. And scientists getting the idea that maybe, delivering the RNA to the cell, maybe you can generate protein and it could be therapeutic, but there was only problem with this RNA. Very small amount of protein, very short amount of time was generated, and the RNA was immunogenic. So that's what, with my colleague, we did. We tried to understand that why it is, and I made the mRNA, and we tested out in human cells, and we found that it caused inflammation. We measured the inflammation by measuring the molecule TNF-alpha, and as you can see, on the purple is the RNA we made synthetically, and when we isolated from the cell different kind of RNA, and those are shown in blue, you can see that they were not as inflammatory. And at the very end there you can see a tRNA, which was not inflammatory at all. And at that point, we knew that the transfer RNA, you might learn in school about part of the translation mechanism, you know, the tRNA has a lot of nucleoside modification. And that gave us the idea that maybe nucleoside modification makes the RNA non-immunogenic, and that would, you know, would make the RNA applicable for medical use. And it was also important when we look at there and made molecules which contains these modification and tested out, we found that now that I blue show the unmodified one, and then you can see that some of these modified one on the lower panel not causing any inflammation. And when we look at closer, we found that uridine, that's one building block of the RNA, had to be modified. So that was it. That was the discovery. It seems so simple. But I just tried to make it that way. It was important, of course, that we had to have some kind of mRNA molecule to be therapeutic, to be translatable. So on the very right one, you can see the RNA. In orange is the pseudouridine-containing RNA. That's a new word for you to learn today, pseudouridine. And it translated 10 times more, you know, more efficiently. And so now that not just the RNA is non-immunogenic, you can get more protein. And my colleagues at the University of Pennsylvania took a next level, and they generated a vaccine. This was 2017, and it was, again, Zika virus. Exactly the same composition of that RNA was that if you get the vaccine, mRNA vaccine, and put in a lipid nanoparticle. And when it tested out in animal system, in monkeys, what we found is in these vaccines protected the monkeys from the Zika viral infection. And that was the 60 years that we get into this, what you more familiar with, because by 2020 January, we learned there is a virus there. We learned in January the sequence information, and it took us less than a year to develop a vaccine. So this is why I am here today. This was this, you know, a lot of people in science is like we are building on other people's discoveries and our fellow colleagues and together, but this was this result why I am here. So that, but also I want to tell you, how did I get here? Where did I come from? I grew up in Hungary, a very small house. We had one room there, reed roof and adobe house. We had no refrigerator, no running water, and no television set. That's first 10 years I haven't seen a television. And my father was a butcher, so we had a very simple life, but we had garden with animals and plants, and we watched those, and I was interested in. And I had an older sister who did well in school, so I had to, you know, in her footstep, had to do well. And so in elementary school, I already started to compete in different kind of competition, like biology, chemistry, and when I was 14 years old, I was the third best in Hungary in biology, in competition. And as a result of it, participating in summer camp. These girls all there from the different part of Hungary who performed very well on that competition. And then these girls are here on this picture. Is everybody's 13 years old. There are teachers there, but the rest of it, you know, these girls. And what was interesting is that I know some of them became chemists, others biologists, and physicians. So it is interesting that already elementary school, we should have elementary school children here, because they already know what they want to do. And in the small town where 10,000 people lived, I went to the high school. And, you know, excellent teachers. And without them, you know, we wouldn't be here. And so that I had excellent biology teacher and chemistry teacher. And we wrote letters to Hungarian scientists, because we couldn't speak English, and sent, you know, and what was surprising is that they responded. Actually, one of them we sent to Canada, and that was Hans Scheie. And Hans Scheyer coined the word actually stress, and I will talk about later, because without reading his book, I again wouldn't be here. You see, there's so many things needed to get here. And so what happened is that in the school, this is still a small school, and it was very difficult to get to the university because in 1 year there was only 40 people could be biologists. And in age 16, I decided that I will be a scientist. I never seen one, but I imagined that I will go to work and I will discover every day something. Not exactly turn out that way, but I needed more help. So what happened in the university, they organized for the underprivileged children, like my parents were just elementary school education, like grade 6 and 8 grade they finished. And we participated, and the first time I could enter to university. And I could see first time a professor. You know, it is a small town, you don't see that. At the right, I am there listening to a professor when I was like, here is 17 years old. As a result of it, I was accepted to the university, Szeged. I went there because there was this biological research center were there, and then I was getting a job there when I graduated. So after, telling you what happens, graduation, you start to work. I started to work at a biological research center, and I also get married. And after marrying, I started to work on my PhD, but I also became a mom. And this is when usually scientists had a difficult time to be a mother, and especially if you don't have good finances, and we didn't have that with my husband. So usually the woman would leave the position and, taking care of the child. But in that system in Hungary at that time was very affordable and high-quality childcare, where registered nurses were taking care of the children. Every day, a pediatrician visited. They get all of the vaccination. We have to sign it, that we agreed, and then they get the vaccination at the childcare. So my daughter was 4 months old, and she was already in that school. So. But even that, I went back to work, after 4 months, but it still had difficulties. So we were happy in Hungary, and we never wanted to come to America, but eventually we, I losing my position. Again, I am telling you right now, many times I lost my position, I was kicked out. And a message to you is that I didn't let anybody to define me. The important thing was what I do after other people make a decision about me. So I went and we came to America. Here my daughter is 2.5 years old. You can see how tall she is. And what happened is that she turned out okay. She became... She was 10 years on the United States rowing team, and she got a gold medal too. One is in Beijing and one in London. I can tell you, we were there with my husband, we were watching her, and in London, the women 8, this is rowing, women 8, US team get the gold medal, and the silver went to Canada. So the Canadians were always the big competitors there. And, the family was, now that she has a child, I am a grandmother, and next month I will get a second child. And so this is, you can have a happy life. So at least you can see me here, get family, and you do not have to make a decision. You have to make sure that you select the right guy, so that make sure that he appreciate your dreams, and if you have children, then you have to share the responsibility to raise the children. And what I was doing in these days is try to help, inspire the next generation. The book left in Hungarian, the others in English, showing Drew Weissman and me doing the discoveries. And so all of these, I'm 67 years old, so all of these years and went through, I was working 24 years at University of Pennsylvania when I was terminated in my position, and they showed me the door because I couldn't bring in the grant money. But then I decided that I would go to Germany, BioNTech, a company that was not had even a website, and I worked there 9 years, and you know, with Pfizer together we developed the vaccine. And so I was working in Hungary, working in the United States, then commuted actually, because my husband, my family stay in the US, so I commuted to Germany, so don't complain long commute, because between Philadelphia and Germany is quite long. And so I learned a lot. And so in the last couple of minutes, I would like to give you some advice, which you have to consider. You don't have to take it, but consider. And oops. One of them was that I don't know whether you like to think about problems or something, problem solving, but you know, if you like to do that, then science is good for you. If you want, you know, to be in the limelight, that maybe you have to be an actress, or if you want a lot of money, I don't know what you have to do then, but you have to love what you are doing, because the rest of your life is doing. So when I spent Saturday, Sunday, and all of the time, I was in the laboratory, because I loved to do that, because I wanted to be there. Other from outside sees that it is a suffering. Oh, must be so hard and difficult. But I was in full control there, and so you can see I was smiling. And it is important also that when you decide to go to science and be a scientist, your goal should be to understand the problems and come up with a solution, which maybe eventually our dream is always to help somebody. And not to want to be a scientist, I want to be a professor, I want to be, you know, those kind of thing is misleading, because I never been a professor. I was a junk professor, which means not a real one, but just I'm saying to you. And also, you know, just be always, you know, just modest. And you see, I want to have like a little green there and a big carrot under this, what means that you don't have to show, you know, you have to have the core value. And I told you that Hans Scheyer is Hungarian-born Canadian scientist, and he coined in the 1930s the word stress. And he showed that the stress can kill you, and but it depends on how you perceive it. And so you have to learn how to handle stress. Probably you already have some stress, yeah, in school. And so to handle it, you have to also realize that you need stress, a positive one. Like this morning, you wake up and then you said, oh, we are coming here, so you were excited and with the anticipation that we will talk to each other, yeah? So that is a positive stress, and you need positive stress, but you have to learn how to change the negative to positive one, and that's a skill. I started when I was 16, reading his book, and then I started. So when when I was terminated, I didn't say, hoo-hoo, but I said, you know, that, okay, instead of spending time with licking my wound, why me? I was better than that and that. Spend all of the time, okay, what I should do next. So that's what is very important. Also, it is, you know, that don't, everything what you do has to end with what I should do. Because you say, oh, the teacher should give that, my parents should do that. You cannot change that. You have to end with what I should do. I should study better, and then I get better grades. Not that the teacher should give something better. So that, and also don't compare one and each other on a way that feeling that I am studying more, and even later life, you know, I work harder, and listen, the other is working less and promoted, gets more salary. Because immediately, if you recognize that, you already took away your attention, what you can change. You cannot change that. Somebody could be the favorite of the boss, or something. You cannot change that. But you can change that, what is in front of you, and work better and harder. And this is why I could, you know, keep up working. Even I never get an R01 grant, and you know, but I had a colleague at least who appreciated what I did and paid the salary, but I could keep doing the work. And I did not say that, you know, my salary was like a technician salary, and that didn't matter, because I liked what I was doing and enjoyed it, and eventually I could feel the progress, so that you don't have to persist and insist some project or being somebody kind of thing, which, you know, and you don't see progress towards that. You have to see progress, and then you can insist. And oops. Yes, so, and what other important things? Can you imagine coming from this small town in Hungary and going to the Ivy League school? You can see, you can hear I have accent. I started to learn English when I was 18. So, you know, and there in this Ivy League school, University of Pennsylvania, everybody is so smart. And then thinking that I will think about something they don't, you know. I have to think that could be, because otherwise, if I don't believe myself, immediately I could say that, okay, maybe I can assist others. So don't lower your bar. And yes, that will be happen, that, you know, you think that things are smooth sailing, and then you just find out that there are a lot of things in the way. But at what it says, that believing in yourself is an endless destination. Believing you will fail is end of your journey. If you think something that you cannot do it, don't even start, because probably you cannot. Because then you will find some explanation and excuse. That's what will happen. And of course, to succeed in life, you have to move out from your comfort zone. Because right now, you know, you have the safety of the home, and your parents are there, and everything. But you have to discover the world, and then you have to learning more, and for that one you have to leave, and you have to take risk. And just like, you know, with my husband, we arrived to the United States and one-way ticket, and with little money what we have, but believing ourselves, leaving our comfort zone, that we could be going and happy. And finally, I would tell you something about my daughter. She's right there. And so that when she was second grade, she is telling me, you know, she just finished school. It was summer, and she started to write a letter. And I asked her, who you are writing? And she said, oh, Mrs. Wilson. It was after the second grade. And she said that we learned so much, I have to write and thank her. And she didn't see this from me, because I realized that I am 35 years old that I was. I never, thanks to my teachers, you know, for all of the things what I learned. And so one message is that you can learn even from 7 years old. You can learn anybody. And it is also important for you that from time to time you have to thank to your teachers, to your parents, and everybody who help you on your journey. You know, thanks for what they have done for you. And so I thanks for colleagues. Now I have in BioNTech and working together and develop vaccine and other products. So, and I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thanks so much. That was amazing. So many life lessons in just a few slides. We're now going to transition to our panel. So I'd like to bring on Shruti Prabhakaran, who's one of our high school summer students. So if you come in, Shruti, and Ella Nugent, who's one of our summer students who's an undergraduate here at University of Toronto. So how about you guys come down, and then Dr. Cook and Dr. Karikó. Go ahead, Shruti.
So I'll start with the first question. So when you were a student, did you want to pursue medicine or science or a particular field in that subject area?
For me, medicine, I have to say that I fainted from blood. That was not for me. And so but I want to be biologist. And my favorite things was always said, plants. When I went to the university and first day, we had to say that what we are excited about at the university. And I said, I love plants. And everybody looked at me, because this was 1973. Everybody was excited about genetics and thought that, plants, those are so boring.
Very exciting.
I was interested in physical education. I was a tomboy when I grew up, a term that we don't use anymore, but I love sports. I was always outside, and thought that I initially was going to be a varsity track athlete and be a professional athlete. That was a ridiculous fantasy, I realized as soon as I got into university. Then I thought I'd do physical education. I was going to be a teacher, and I realized when I worked in the library part-time, the health science library, just looking through some of the books I was handing out to the students, I was very interested in not just the health of the body, but understanding pathophysiology and all the problems and illnesses that could arise, and I thought I would apply to medicine. So it was not a goal at all.
Different surprise, but I mean, it got you where you are today, so.
My name's Ella. I just want to thank you both for your incredible presentations. It was so inspiring to hear your journeys. I was just wondering if you had any doubts throughout your journeys, and how you dealt with those kinds of doubts and persevering through that, because it sounds like there's a lot of perseverance on both of your ends, and I want to know what inspired you both to do that and how you were able to do that.
So for me, actually, from day one, I was elementary school, and because my parents were not highly educated, they didn't taught me and my sister how to read and write. And in elementary school, I was straight B because, I learned there things. And so I constantly in my life had to catch up. And that was the same at the university. I went there, other people were chemistry lab, they were already fluent in English, and, I had to go English class, I had to learn that, and constantly, so had to catch up, and then it was so the other people who already get more advanced, that complacency, they sit back, Kati doesn't even know that, and then when they woke up, then they're realizing that, I already took the English class lessons and everything, so don't sit back that you are so smart and you are no more than others, because, it quickly you can realize that. So the task was there, so that I had to focus on and work on so much. And I don't say that I did not worry about the summer or something, that I will forget so many things we had to learn and I will forget. But I was not worried that much about, I don't know, you?
Sure. I mean, there are absolutely obstacles, but you were speaking earlier about the importance of persistence. And I think for me, patience and persistence are absolutely important, but fundamentally, it's important to be passionate about something. So just back to what I was originally interested in, sports and athletics. I was so passionate about exercise, but the things about which you are passionate, you learn so much from them. So through sports, I learned about the importance of a team, leadership, striving for goals, sometimes meeting your goals, sometimes not meeting your goals. So when you're passionate about something and you can learn from whatever it is about which you are passionate, that helps so that when you have other activities that you're pursuing, say in science, the persistence is a little easier because you love it already. And you've built on passions in the past. You shift your passion, maybe to whatever aspect of science you're pursuing. And then you can be patient and persistent because you're building on the foundation of some kind of passion. And you've learned from past activities in your life about which you were passionate. So to me, those 3 Ps always go together.
It's interesting that you mentioned the sport, because as I mentioned, my daughter was rowing. I don't know, do you know the rowing? That they go backwards. They don't see where is the finish line. I told her that, this is like science, I am pulling hard, and I don't even know that I am going the right direction, at least the row.
Okay. So often successful women, they're asked, how do they do it all? How do they balance their work and life commitments? But successful men, it seems like they aren't asked these questions as much as women. So what do you say to that? What's your response to these types of questions?
Yes, I was just asked actually a day ago, and I said, you know, if I would be a man, would you ask me this question? You know, because they don't ask a man that, how did you manage with your children? You know, nobody asks, and we are laughing on that. But that's why I try to present that, you know, I have a daughter, and you can manage. And I have to say, I don't know that how your parents are assisting your life, but I did not assist my daughter. I was 6 o'clock in the morning. I was already at work. She had to get up because my husband works 3 shifts, and she had to prepare the breakfast when she was elementary school for my husband, so that she had the responsibilities. And when she wrote a project in school, in elementary school, that she was the only one that she had to vacuum in Saturday, you know. And you are not laughing, you are not doing that? So it is, you know, I was not in the morning begging that, oh, you have to get up, dress, you know. She had to do it. And so that sometimes we women overdoing, you know, assisting our children, because we try to help them, of course, but maybe helping them the way that not to help them.
Or maybe we should ask, how many of you make your parents breakfast? One.
One,
All
good,
right.
2.
All right, maybe some work to do over the next
And are you cleaning the house? Huh?
A couple
Good,
more hands. Not
good.
many, not many. All right.
But now, next week maybe.
Next week.
Next week.
Yeah. Tomorrow. All right. Deborah?
So you're asking about work-life balance, and I guess this question sort of underscores there's, you know, women themselves are heterogeneous. So I don't have children, for example, and the work-life balance challenges I have of some similar dimensions, some different dimensions, and so I like to think of myself as a work in progress there. I think all of us have times in our lives where maybe we are not attending to certain things while we are focusing on other things. That could be your friends, maybe it could be your parents, maybe it could be your spiritual health, maybe it could be you're taking care of your body and exercising and eating properly. So we balance a lot of things. All people do, women and men. And for each of us who've got different people and activities and, you know, professional portfolios, we may all do it differently. But acknowledging all the balls that we juggle and being aware that some of them bounce. Sometimes there's a glass ball, you drop it, and it shatters. So I think attending to all the balls we juggle and what we want to keep up in the air, what we want to put down, perhaps even temporarily, in order to pursue something, like a big exam. Okay, you're maybe not going to go out with your friends, you're maybe not going to, whatever other fun things you might like to do, because you're going to focus. So thinking about all the balls we all juggle, what you want to keep up, what you want to avoid shattering by letting it drop. Those are some of the issues I think about regarding balance. But it's an issue for men as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. That's definitely going to help me when I'm thinking of my work-life balance as life gets busier and busier with each year of university. But you both mentioned that you were, you know, one of few women in your field and going through your journeys. So what has been probably the most significant obstacle that you've faced as a result of being a woman in science?
I mean, being a woman in science, as I mentioned, you know, having family, so it is still a challenge, because no matter what, how good my husband is, still I had to be pregnant, and I had to carry the child for that long, and so that time I couldn't work, you know, and we work with radioactive and serious chemicals, and So that was a challenge. I have to say that in my career, that people who actually who demoted me and they were women and other women leaders. So I am not necessarily saying that all of the women should be, all of the leaders should be a women, because I just say that somebody is a good leader, and for example, those people who help me and who believe that mRNA is, would be useful, and they supported my salary, all were men, and so that if it would be backwards, I would say yes, those goddamn guys, they did not appreciate my work. And also I gave a lecture, and what you mentioned happening, that somebody asked that I presented about in a Ivy League school about the modified RNA, and then asked that who's your supervisor? And that was another woman asked me, a professor. So that again, if it would be a man, I would say, oh, they are. But I would say that there are, leaders with good judgment and good vision, and others, that whether they can be men or women, and not necessarily a woman will have another one.
Could I ask a question about not so much the obstacle, but both of you have taken leaps. Like you've been willing to immigrate, being willing to go to Germany, like just take these jumps in Katalin's, but also in your career and where you've been exposed. Could you talk about why that was possible? Like what made it possible for you to take the leap, and how you would encourage students to think about when opportunities come their way?
So I mentioned that I was sent away from Penn because I couldn't get the funding, and so I went to retirement. And I could look at, I had a home, and I was 58, and I could see the grass growing in the yard or something like that. But I felt that I have so much to offer. I learned so much, and I am ready to do more. And so that was the place I felt that, okay, now we have to take it to the clinic. And there are a company who was making GMP, so RNA for clinical trial, and I thought that I have to go there, that maybe in my lifetime I can see one person benefiting what I was doing, and that kind of dream. You have to imagine things and dream and work towards this, and that was inside. And of course, my husband supported, because he said, "Oh, you work all your life on that, so just go there." And it is important for, I mentioned, leave your comfort and go somewhere, experience, and anything. The bad one is also good, because you learn from it. Even if people treated you badly, you learn, okay, I won't do that to other person because it hurts. And if you're constantly learning bad or good experiencing, instead of getting disappointed and sad and depressed and stressed or something. So for me it was always something I was dreaming.
Yeah, the opportunities are everywhere, and it's great to have an approach to think about what to do when opportunities are before you, because not all everything in front of you, not all ideas, not all suggestions from people which may represent opportunities are ones you're going to take or you're going to want to take. But it's good to think about opportunity against the opportunity cost. Sometimes if you don't take an opportunity, that's got a downside. And sometimes that weighs heavily versus an opportunity before you. There could be some upside to that. So it's a bit of a balance. And then when there's an opportunity that you're uncertain about, it's nice to take some time to reflect on it. You don't have to decide right away. But talk to people, discuss, have some reflective time. Go back to the advice. When you want advice, when you go to the top, well, who is the top? Maybe it's a parent. Maybe it's a teacher. Maybe it's a supervisor. There's some discussion there. And opportunities
are always going to come your way in life. You don't need to take every single one of them, but it's good to think through not only what will it look like going down that road, and you can't see always, just like the rower going backwards. But sometimes it's also good to think about what happens if I keep doing what I'm doing and don't take that opportunity. That can be motivating. No, I'll just do this. That's got a consequence as well. Every choice in life has consequences. Every choice. So thinking through the professional ones as early career scientists, it's good to think about opportunities, but also opportunity costs. Discuss. You want advice? Go to the top. Remember whose views are you seeking? Take some time, think about it. And other opportunities will come up. There's not one. It's not like there's only one path for you. Up and down, as we saw on your slide, up and down, many obstacles. But there's also many paths.
Nobody will knock at your door to say, oh, you are so smart, you have to come. You have to always seek out.
Thank you both for your amazing advice. I wanted to ask what you would suggest for students and young people nowadays to find a job, because with the fierce competition that there is nowadays, it can be really difficult to find a stable career. So I want to ask for your advice on how to kind of jumpstart that.
Oh, I saw that it is backwards. There is not enough. That's why we are here, to help you to make it, because there is not enough. We need more. I was awarded the UNESCO L'Oreal Award, and it was advertised in the major airport that, we need more people in science and we need more women. And so that, I don't know that when I was high school, I did experiments. We had in a local, it was a good high school, although it was a small town, and they, did the experiments with to put the different salts in the water and see that how the plants could grow. And that was this Justus Liebig experiment. And can you imagine, I go to Germany, I am 60 years old, and it happened that the next city is the Justus Liebig University. And when they invited, this was the only invitation I accepted, because I said, oh, I did the experiments, what the discoverer did, who after the university was named. So that did the little experiments, but even just look at the trees and you see that, okay, the leaves color is red, and then was it always red? How the red get there? And then you can look it up in the Wikipedia or somewhere that how it was always there, but it covered up the green because the green is stronger, or the green degrades and it gets yellow, or how it happens. So everything what is around you, you can pay attention and investigate. It is difficult to go to a university laboratory when you are not 18, at least in the US, as I know, because you have to have, safety, health insurance, everything you have to have. And you have to, because there is a dangerous place. There are chemicals, there are other things, and who is accepting you is responsible for everything. And they, want to make sure that you don't hurt yourself, but so it is difficult to go a laboratory. But when I was an undergraduate student, I went to a fishery institute, and in the summer, where fish was farmed, and then we gave different food to the animals and check out what kind of fat they have, so that some level you can discover maybe in the area also that there is something, and then you might do some work that you can not requires too much skills, but then you can get involved because you ask and assist here and there, and finally you find yourself in the laboratory doing an experiment maybe. I don't know that what you can suggest, early jump start.
Well, I'd say persist. I just persist, and whatever position you do end up taking, determine what it is you can learn from it. Every possible job you have, even if it's not directly in the field you like, you have something to learn from it. Look at it as a learning opportunity. And early on, I remember when I first had an inkling I might like to do some science, I applied to work in a laboratory of an investigator, McMaster. I had no experience whatsoever, and was interviewed, and he phoned me and said, you know, thank you for applying. I just want to say I just don't see science being in your future. And I was a bit taken aback, but I thought, you know, maybe that's right. Maybe that's right, and I'd keep doing what I'm doing. But even those setbacks are important lessons, and it sort of made me stop and think, perhaps not, there's so many things I could do, but it also made me redouble efforts to think, no, I think I would like to do science. And in fact, it ended up not being pursuit of science in a laboratory, but pursuit of science at the bedside, enrolling patients, caring for patients, doing patient and family-centered research in practice. And it was a great gift that was a solid decline from my first pursuit of a science job. The message couldn't have been any more negative. Politely delivered, an unequivocal no, and an admonition that this probably wasn't in my future. And of course it was troubling at first, but it did make me think, okay, that could be the case, and it really caused me to dig down deep and think about it. And I could have pursued other laboratory work, and I was encouraged to do that at Stanford, where that was a great strength of the university, and I had to sort of really make a case for wanting to study clinical research.
The lessons are always hard, but they are valuable, right?
Yes,
I think that's the thing.
true.
Yeah, so true. I've been given the signal that we're supposed to wrap up, but there's going to be time to ask lots of questions, and that you'll be able to network with some others. So thank you very much to Shruti and Ella, and thank you very much to the laureates for coming and joining us. So if you want to take a seat. Thank you. Thank you. So thanks so much. I think that was so informative, and I really loved the questions, both from the audience as well as from Ella and Shruti. And I'm going to end my session here, but I just want to say that, you know, there's a quote by Kurt Vonnegut that says, "Science is magic that works." And I think that, I hope that we've introduced you to some science and to some magic today, and that you can help us solve problems and help humanity just as these amazing women have done. I'm now going to turn it over to Summer Wedlock, the Executive Vice President of the Gairdner Foundation, who's then going to take you to through the next steps for the rest of the day. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for attending our first Women of Gairdner event. It's my pleasure to be here on behalf of the Gairdner Foundation alongside our chair, Heather Monroe-Bloom, and our director, Gail O'Brien. I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about Gairdner as well. The Gairdner Foundation celebrates scientific excellence through the annual Canada Gairdner Awards. Since 1957, we've awarded more than 400 laureates from 40 countries, and 96 of those have gone on to win the Nobel Prize. In addition, we convene leaders through various programs, whether it's symposia, panels, lectures, and we also aim to inspire the next generation of innovators, which is what we're doing today. So I hope you leave today feeling inspired. I know I certainly am. So thank you, Dr. Karikó and Dr. Cook, for your involvement today. I'd also like to thank our Gairdner Science Week sponsors, the Government of Canada and CIHR, and to Women's College Hospital. Without your support, this week of important networking and engagement would not be possible. So up next is our networking and education portion of the event. If you have a pink sticker, you're going to go outside to the pink cube. If you have a green sticker, you're going to stick around here in the auditorium. So I hope you enjoy the networking, and remember there's no such thing as a silly question. So enjoy.